Hey Bookends! Welcome to this week's 10-minute book review. I'm a 10. This week's book review is going to be on an anthology, and it is by, well, it's hard to say that it's by. I believe it was curated by Carol Sterling, and it is Twilight Zone. So, we like to start off every book review with a star point, as in out of 10 stars, how many stars did this particular book garner, and a rating, as in if this was a movie or a TV show, like Twilight Zone was a TV show, what would these stories be rated? So for star point, overall, you know how we like to do it with anthologies, like to give a 1 to 5? But since this anthology is based on a TV show, so instead of it being based on a particular thought or subject, it's based on one particular entity, which is the TV show Twilight Zone. We're going to be doing this as the 1 to 10 scale, since it is a unified platform for all of these. It's not just about space, it's about Twilight Zone. So from 1 to 10, this garnered a solid 4. Yes, a solid 4. Not that great. Not horrible, just not that great. And for a rating, I'd probably say this would be more like a PG. The stories don't fall too heavily into the realm of PG-13 or R. There is some subject matter that some might not find appropriate for younger children, but it's no more inappropriate than what the original or even the second or third iteration of the Twilight Zone would be showing. So actually no, the third iteration, the one that Peele from Key and Peele does, that can be a little dicey at times, but not this book. Anyway, jumping right on in. I don't want to give too many spoilers. You know how with Twilight Zone, it's mostly science fiction, or there is a reason behind everything that happens? There's a definitive reason behind it, and that definitive reason makes sense for the purpose of that particular story. Like, each story doesn't connect to the next one, but each story makes sense for the world that it is in. This book did not do that. So, most of these stories are ghost stories, I'm just putting it out there. The first story is supposed to, I'm not going to give a spoiler for that, but it's supposed to be an origin story for Rod Sterling. There's one story in it where someone plays a horrible prank on another guy, and it just, the stuff that happens and it didn't make sense. Like, there's this guy who's supposed to be a salesman, and he goes to a sales conference, and everyone has these weird names in the hotel, and apparently he's in the wrong hotel, and they say you can't leave, and his cell phone doesn't work. None of it makes sense. The whole thing was supposed to be a bad prank. And it's like, how would you make someone's cell phone not have cell phone service? Why wouldn't someone try to call the police if they're locked in a hotel? If something, like, it didn't make sense. The whole world didn't support what was happening in the book. And that's the whole thing about Twilight Zone. The world for whatever story is happening supports what's happening in the story. The story doesn't happen outside of the world. So that didn't make any sense. There was another story about this guy who was supposed to be, I guess, just average Joe, nice guy, whatever, like bonsai trees, learned voodoo and turned somebody into like a statuette. It didn't make sense. Like, it... Okay, so if you're familiar with the Twilight Zone series, you may remember the one Monster on Mayberry Street or some street, where, like, everyone's power goes out, and then one person's power comes back on, then someone else's power comes back on, and it turns out that it's aliens testing humans to see what would happen if they were inconvenienced, and how everyone started turning on each other. But you get to find out, okay, well, it was aliens, and they were just testing humans to see, okay, well, what would y'all do if y'all didn't have this, and your neighbor had it? Would you help each other, or would you be like, oh, let's kill Bill and take his power? Or the one with Talking Tina, the doll. You know, the doll is crazy and it makes sense for that story. Or the one where the woman is aesthetically pleasing for that time period, and you're wondering, why does she keep getting surgery? Why does she keep getting surgery? And you see the doctor looks like a pig, and the nurse looks like a pig, and everyone else's face looks like a melting pig's face. And she's like, oh my god, I'm so ugly. I'm ugly. Even though she's what we would consider to be aesthetically pleasing. everybody else in that world has this melted pig face and she doesn't look like them. And so that story fits that world. These stories are, I would say, they take place within our world. It's our world. But it's these individualized things happening within them that are either magic-like or ghost-like. And it wasn't really... The stories were well written. I'll say that. They were well written, I'm losing my words because I didn't really like this book. But the stories are well written and well edited, but the content is just not good. It is not there. And I'm sorry to say that because I believe this is either Rod Serling's daughter or granddaughter who curated these stories. And they are so un-Twilight Zone. I think I could count on one hand how many stories in Twilight Zone had something to do with a ghost. And everything seemed to have a reason, or at least a moral. All of them had a moral to the story, like the one with ugliness. Beauty is supposed to be in the eye of the beholder. With the one where the lights were going out, it's supposed to be, you know, help your neighbor, not hurt your neighbor because they have more than you. So each Twilight Zone episode had some sort of moral at the end of it. These stories have no type of moral, aside from learn voodoo and hurt people, or pay a lot of money to do really bad pranks, or it's just there was no moral to any of these stories. There was no cognitive world building within any of these stories. You didn't get to exist in the actual Twilight Zone. You're basically living wherever you are, and you're reading these stories about people who are doing things either ghost-like or what have you. I do not recommend this book to any fans of the Twilight Zone. You are not going to read it and feel nostalgia. You're going to read it and feel, what the heck just happened and why was this even created? Yeah. In the way of content, sex is mentioned, but in a vague sense, and it is not heavily explained. It's more so someone wanted to have sex or someone felt someone else was desirable, but the actual sexual acts are not explained. There is some violence, but the violence is not heavy. That first story, that's supposed to be an origin story, it takes place during a war, so that one is kind of heavy with a little bit of violence, but it kind of stands by itself. Yeah. In all honesty, I can't tell you one story that I liked within this anthology because I can honestly say I liked none of them. But if you are just a Twilight Zone aficionado and you just want to be able to say that you've read it, by all means, do as you will. But if you're actually into Twilight Zone, into science fiction, into stories that make sense for the world that they're being built in, this is not the book for you. It is not. Don't buy it. Not for you. Thank you so much for watching. I know that we've been gone for a little bit, but some stuff happened. Hopefully we'll be able to make a video explaining that. We're not going to put it on this because, you know, we don't want to clutter up review videos with personal stuff. So maybe we'll do a 10-minute check-in on that. But thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Bye, Bookends.